Hello, Sumo fans. Welcome to a very special live stream mid-basho as we did last time. And just like the July tournament, it is a crazy free-for-all. Just way crazier than last time. Because in July, at least, we had front runners. We had the top guys competing. It made a lot of sense. You know, Takayasu was in it. Now Takayasu is not even in the tournament anymore. He had to pull out. The knee is shot, and it sounds like surgery is going to be required, which is a very scary thing. And it looks like, with the exception of Wakatakage, everybody else is a Maegashira man. Hello, Daniel. Good to see you. So, this really is a free-for-all. Any one of these guys that I'm going to talk about could possibly walk home with the tournament. And I can't see anybody in here, at least at day 10, that it's like, oh yeah, it's going to be him. So let's start at the top. We've got, with 9 wins, Tamawashi at Maegashira 3 and Hokutofuji at Maegashira 8. For a while, both Tamawashi and Hokutofuji were undefeated. Tamawashi was the first one to go down. Hokutofuji went down today. So now we are in a situation where they are tied. Hokutofuji went down a little rough today. I'm hoping there was nothing to that. But it seemed a little soul crushing. I don't know if it's because he was so close and he was undefeated, so it was very disappointing to lose in the way that he did. Perhaps that was the issue. But Tamawashi was the man looking a little bit better in this whole thing, because he looked very, very confident, and he was not going to lose today. And that's bad news for Takayumi, because he's only one loss away from becoming Sekiwake or Ozekiwake, because he will be given one more chance to get 10 wins, but I don't see that happening. So right now, Tamawashi and Hokutofuji are at the top, but right behind them are Takayasu at Maegashira 4 and Nishikifuji at Maegashira 10. I didn't see that one coming. However, Nishikifuji is in Terunofuji's stable, and that's one strong stable. Their training must be very intense. Still in all, that's a surprise right there that he's in this. Takayasu, on the other hand, was my pick. So I am thrilled that he is following the same pattern that he seems to have been following after his COVID absences. This is an interesting situation for him, because he's sort of not being looked at right now, which is a good thing. When Takayasu's in the lead, things get a little stressful for him. That's when the epic collapses happen. That's when the slow walk that me and John always refer to, you know, he has these epic collapses probably because he can't deal with the pressure. I don't think there's any pressure on him right now because he's coming from behind, but yet he's only one behind. And he could beat Tamawashi or Hokutofuji. This could be his chance, and I really hope it is. I got a good feeling, but like I said, anybody could win. Daniel says, I believe Hokutofuji made a comment to the press that he really felt that the bout was winnable, so that might be why he was so down. I assumed that when I first saw him, because it did look like it just a complete frustration, sadness, like it's slipping out of my hands kind of thing. But anytime somebody falls, like if it looks like their knee or their ankle, I get paranoid. And maybe that's because I'm a Takayasu fan. We'll get to him in a little bit. But I think Takayasu, this is his best shot, if any. So let's see what he can do. Then we're going to go into the sevens, and one of the sevens is Wakatakage, the only man in Sanyaku who's in this race right now. And he happens to be John's pick. So John and I are still in the running for possibly for the first time ever picking the winner of this tournament. Okay. Just checking something here. So, Wakatakage got 7 wins. Tobizaru at Maegashira 1 has 7 wins. And we were kind of discussing how crazy it was that they raised him up so high. You know, what's he going to do? Well, if he keeps up at this pace, the bare minimum that he's going to get is a trip to Sanyaku for the first time. He might stay in the running, but I don't know that he's not on my mind to be the guy who's going to win. We'll see what happens. Then we have Oho, which Oho is a complete surprise because he's gone up and down, up and down. I wasn't expecting him to have such a pole vault all of a sudden, especially at Maegashira 13. With that said, this is a crazy tournament, and a lot of guys who should be winning and should be taking matches from him, they are not. This is a weird one. And then Chiyo Shoma at Maegashira 14, once again. The guys that should be winning their matches, you know, being stable, not winning their matches. So, what we have here is Tamawashi, who gets knocked out of his Ironman record by some weird COVID rules, even though he wasn't sick. And the question was, how would he respond in the next tournament? On paper, they're going to let him keep it, but you know in your heart of hearts that you really didn't fight every single match. Well, it looks like his response is, maybe I'll go out and win the next tournament. He's pretty incredible. I have to say that I'm impressed by him. I'm also like mad at him sometimes because he hurts people. But that's more of a testament of his fierceness in the ring. I mean, this guy is the oldest guy left in the upper ranks, and he's just going to go out and put up a score like this. He's going to take advantage of the fact that the top guys are not top guys. And he's been doing this for a while now. He's been in the conversation. He's been hanging around, you know, the tournament leaderboard, and then something would always go wrong. Either he'd lose to someone that he should lose to by ranking, or he'd get tired out, or, you know, I'm assuming fatigue is a big part of why he never makes it to the end. He looks like a totally different man this time. I would not be shocked if Tamawashi won. With that said, Hokutofuji is John's guy. And so I'm sort of rooting for him because this would be his first tournament win ever. Maybe the only time. We've been waiting for Hokutofuji for so long to show what he can do. And it's finally happening. So it would be really disappointing for him to make it this far and just be done. So there's a heart pick with Hokutofuji. Takayasu, we all know that Takayasu is the man who's had the most crushing defeats in the history of modern sumo, and he's due to finally get his tournament win. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he cried. I wouldn't be surprised if I cried if Takayasu won. So I'm still going to go with my pick. I want Takayasu to win, but there's really no losers here. So, you know, what do you think? Let's see. Daniel says, I'm not holding my breath with Oho. He's had multiple basho where he has an excellent start and then he fades. Last time he had a 7-3 start and he finished 7-8. Exactly. Oho, I'm writing off immediately. Chiyo Shoma, he's just on here because he just happens to have 7 wins. I'm not even considering him. Tobizaru is an interesting guy because he was in the last tournament conversation as well and then had to leave because of COVID. So has something changed with him where he's making a splash and he's going to do something? There is a lot of internet debate over Tobizaru. There are plenty of people who have completely written him off as being just, you know, foolish and silly, and he's always flying out and he's just not good enough. But I find those critiques very interesting, considering that those same people tend to root for Ura, and maybe Ura's no different in a way. So, I mean, we haven't had a consistent consistent guy since Hakuho, when Hakuho was injured. So, Tobizaru probably won't be consistent, but he might make a Sanyaku debut. He might make a run for something because our Ozeki are... Whoa. And like I said, I'm a Takayasu fan, and I'm not happy. Not happy with the Ozeki. So, Oho Chiyoshoma out. Tobizaru, not likely, but he's an interesting, fun pick. Wakatakage, I'm not writing him off yet because he's won his first tournament. He went on the Ozeki run. It all fell apart. This is his opportunity to claim his rightful place because he's the Sekiwake. He's the great new hope. He's supposed to be the top guy on this list. So if all the stars align and things go the way they're supposed to, Wakatakage should be the winner. So I'm not writing him off. Nishikifuji, I'm not going to throw myself out there. Takayasu is a former Ozeki, so with the exception of, he could be the one exception to Wakatakage, Takayasu might want to reclaim his rightful position. He may not win the tournament as an Ozeki, but to win a tournament and to be an Ozeki, that's all anybody's going to care about at the end of his career. So, Daniel says, Takayasu is who I'm rooting for. I just think his past is still in his head. I can't imagine that how do you forget about the past? How do you forget about the past when it's happened like 3 times and each time has been worse than the last? He's gotten closer each time and then bam, absolute collapse. The guy is just iron to keep coming back and to keep trying and to not give up and to say that he's going to do this and to get so close each time. A lesser man would have given up by now. So I totally agree with you about Takayasu. That's who I'm rooting for. That's who I picked before the tournament. He's sort of the heart pick. Tamawashi's already had his day, so I'm going to leave Tamawashi, though I'm very impressed by him. Hokutofuji is heart pick number 2. So, going on to a little bit of... Well, first I'll go into the matchups for tomorrow. Tomorrow is Tamawashi versus Hokutofuji. So, what that means is there's a good chance that whole situation can be decided tomorrow. Whoever wins that, one gets knocked down to the next level. One is now the sole leader. That's going to be a really big deal. Nishikifuji and Chiyoshoma are fighting each other, so that's going to sort of, either knock Nishikifuji out or elevate Chiyoshoma. And Waka and Hoshoryu. Now, Hoshoryu is not in this conversation. However, Hoshoryu and Wakatakage have had epic battles. They are the 2 rivals. They are the 2 up-and-comers. It should be a really good match. So I'm looking forward to that. And now we're going to briefly chat about the Ozeki and the Yokozuna situation. So Takayasu's the only Ozeki with a winning score right now. He's 6-4. With his defeat today, unfortunately, he's definitely out of the tournament unless there's some huge collapse. And it seemed like in the beginning he was really gunning for it. It really seemed like Takayasu knew, like, this was the tournament. Teruno Fuji wasn't looking so good. Mitakayumi and Shodai are hanging by a thread. So him being, the top guy, he should be the one to win this tournament. And it's just not happening. And I do think his ankle, there's an issue with the ankle. I do know that he's taken some hard falls and his neck is probably not perfect. And unfortunately, I want to be careful how I say this, but I just think this is Takayasu's fate. He will be lucky to maintain Ozeki, and that's just going to be what it is. It's going to be how Goedo was. It's going to be how Takayasu was. He has won 2 championships, so that's really good. But I don't think he can overcome the limitations of his body. It just seems impossible at this point. No one is, really. No one since Hakuho has been able to be the man. It's just not there. Guys are either too overworked, or they're not as tough, or, some of these great athletes, they only come once in a generation. Roger Federer just recently retired, and he's probably the closest, sport comparison to Hakuho there is. Somehow, through all these years, they were able to take care of their body long enough to win. So if you've got injuries, after a while it catches up, and that's what it is. And so for Takayasu, I think we're just going to have to accept him at Ozeki, enjoy him. We haven't seen anybody else come and dethrone him yet. Nobody else has fought hard enough to take that Ozeki spot. So that's what that is for now. Shodai is doing what Shodai does. Unfortunately, it's kind of getting old, because it's like I do enjoy watching Shodai do his up and coming thing, because it's surprising and thrilling, and it upsets the whole apple cart of the tournament. But those every other tournaments, it's like, who wants to watch an Ozeki go 1-9? Nobody wants to watch that. And then we have Mitakeumi. It's looking very, very much as though he will be, going down to Sekiwake. I don't think he was ready. A lot of people believe that he was Ozeki material. I just don't think he is. What it takes to be Ozeki is to be allowed to get your body pummeled tournament after tournament after tournament, and no one has done it yet the way that they used to do it. We've seen the Ozekis change over and over and over again. Tochinoshin couldn't handle it. Takayasu couldn't handle it. And these are amazing fighters. I don't think Mitakeumi's got enough, endurance to be an Ozeki. So I'm not surprised to see this happen at all. And then we have the Terunofuji situation where they're now talking surgery. I guess surgery is a better outcome than what I thought was going on. When he didn't pull out yesterday, I was really worried that maybe he was already thinking about retiring, because I couldn't understand why he would stay in the tournament when it was obvious he was injured. And I thought the only reason you would stay is if you're never coming back. And then luckily he, wasn't there today. And then there was the talk of the surgery, which means hopefully he's planning to get the surgery so that he can come back again. I assume you wouldn't get a surgery if you thought that you were, you would just fight on until you couldn't do it anymore. But with that said, if he gets the surgery, he could very well go the way of Hakuho, and he's gone next year. And we knew that Terunofuji was on a ticking time clock. I mean, basically he delayed the inevitable, which is no one in sumo right now can replace Hakuho. And Terunofuji was sort of our Band-Aid to get through that absence. And unfortunately, he was a guy who, was on borrowed time anyway. So we are looking at a pretty grim situation up at the top. However, we are going to have a crazy finish no matter what. No matter which one of these guys wins, barring maybe Wakatakage, it's going to be an upset. Tamawashi would not be as much of an upset as anybody else. So if Hokutofuji, Takayasu, Nishikifuji, Tobizaru, Oho, or Chiyoshoma would be the biggest upset. If any of those guys take this home, it's going to be a first. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully this is not our future where we only, where it changes, the winner changes every tournament, and we only have like the roller coaster of Ozeki, where somebody goes up and they immediately drop down because they can't handle it. We will have to see. Daniel says, I'm thinking Terunofuji is just going to coast until we have a new Yokozuna, probably Hoshoryu. I'm guessing that is the plan, My concern is, can he actually pull it off? I mean, I don't know that Hoshoryu is ready to do it tomorrow, and I don't know how long Terunofuji can coast. He can do what Kakuryu did, what Hakuho did, more specifically what Kisa Sato did, which I think he was out for a year and a half before he came back. But the second he came back, he was done. So the most Terunofuji can stall is get the surgery, take a couple tournaments off. But if he comes back terrible, will he be able to keep coming? Or will he have to retire? I am sure the Sumo Association is freaking out about the idea of no Yokozuna and just, I don't know how to describe the Ozeki. I really don't. I mean, nobody's ready to go up there. Nobody. And like I said, Takayasu, I mean, he's holding down the fort, but he's by no means, doing what an Ozeki is supposed to do. And he's not going to become Yokozuna with the way things are going either. I think he was the hope a while ago, but that hope has faded. So we will see if the plan comes to fruition. Daniel says, yeah, Hoshoryu needs another year in the Sanyaku oven. If he can avoid major injuries, it's coming by 2024 in my mind. I would hope so. I'm actually surprised that Hoshoryu has not shown up yet. I expected him to be ready by now, and I really do think he's just in his head. I don't think it has anything to do with his skill set or his strength. I think he, put on the weight he needed to put on, so he's not so easy to push. He's got a large bag of tricks. It's just, I don't know, the pressure. And that's what's crazy about the Ozeki position. First of all, it used to be Ozeki was the top. There was no Yokozuna. Of course, this was, a century ago or something like that. But the Ozeki position is really the absolute hardest position, because you make it all the way up there, and basically, if you're not tough enough to be Yokozuna, all you can do is lose. And somebody takes your place. It's just, I don't know. I really wish I started watching Sumo when there was really good Ozeki so that I could compare it to now, because when I first started watching, it was Goeido and Takayasu only. And then Tochinoshin has his surprise run back up. I barely knew the guy when the whole thing happened. He was the Terunofuji of that time because he had hurt his knees and gone all the way. He didn't go down as far as Terunofuji, but he went down pretty far, comes back up, wins the tournament, gets promoted Ozeki, skylifting everybody out of the ring. And you're thinking, man, this guy can be Yokozuna. And then the knees catch up. Here comes Takayasu, 21 years old, blasting people out, having some good matches with Hakuho. Of course, not beating him, but showing that he's got a lot of gusto. And then he gets the bare minimum wins, and they still make him wait another tournament. And then he wins. And then he wins a tournament as Ozeki. And it's like, okay, this is going to be it. And then, Tochinoshin's out. Takayasu goes way out. Goeido retires. And now you have the surprise of Shodai. And I never expected Takayumi. I hate to say that because I do root for everybody, but I did not expect much out of Takayumi. I didn't think he had what it took. So now I don't know what a true Ozeki should look like. I guess maybe Hakuho was the last great Ozeki too. Who knows? RC Tankman says, no words can describe the Ozeki's ouch. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? It's painful. It's painful to talk about the Ozekis, especially Takayasu. When he first came in at 21, I thought, wow, he's going to do this. And right away, the injury, right after he became Ozeki, he got injured the very next tournament. And then he sat out, and then he did the whole Ozeki Wake thing. And he got the 10 wins, and he proved that he could do something, and it's been the injury train ever since. Daniel says, Hoshoryu has an injured ankle, which explains why he's not thriving right now. Well, John and I talk about that all the time. Injuries really mess things up. That's just how it is, unfortunately. So that would explain a lot. Hopefully the ankles are kind of nagging, but hopefully the ankle is not anything that requires surgery, and once this tournament's over, he can rest and come back with a vengeance, because after this particular tournament, it's going to fire everybody up, because it's probably going to be a Maegashira man who wins. If a Maegashira man doesn't win and it's Wakatakage, still all these Maegashira men were in it. And so why, if you're one of these guys who's been working hard, why can't it be you? There's not going to be any Terunofuji. The Ozekis are falling apart. Why not? So I think for a while we're going to have some craziness until we find the very next great hope. And maybe he's hanging out in Juryo. Maybe he's hanging out in Makushita. Maybe it's Asanoyama. Though we'll have to see. I'm not sold on Asanoyama. I do think that he was Ozeki material. But like Takakisho, I always question, was he Yokozuna material? I don't see him as being anything beneath an Ozeki, but to break through and be the guy, it just takes something very, very special. Or in the case of Asashoryu, something very, very twisted. So, this is going to be wild. I'm going with my Takayasu pick. If anybody else here has something they want to contribute, we'll talk about that. Otherwise, we'll end the stream in a few minutes. I can't wait for tomorrow. I really can't. I'm doing terrible in all of my sumo leagues because I really can't pick people. I wish this time I had joined one of the leagues where you pick somebody to win the whole tournament, and I put in Takayasu, and I hope that it will happen, because that would be the closest I ever got to succeeding in one of these things. I absolutely cannot pick. Daniel says Asanoyama will be the third or second best once he gets back. What do you mean by third or second best? Are you saying to the other Ozekis? Is that what you're referring to? He's got a lot of baggage that he's carrying with him. Some of it's emotional, some of it's physical. I mean, he's been through the ringer, and unfortunately, we didn't really talk too much about this in the preview. The guy who set the sort of the standard for this, Abi, because he was the first one to get really, really punished and come back, and he came back great, and he looked so strong. He fell apart pretty quick, and now he's injured and out, and, you know, who knows if he's ever going to live up to his potential. I was kind of hoping that he would come back in a blaze of glory, be Ozeki again. It would be great to see him up in the Ozeki, but once again, just not quite there. And that's how I felt about Asanoyama as an Ozeki. He's got sort of the... Yeah, a great example is the Ashitori leg pick that Terutsuyoshi pulled off on him. There seems to be a lack of either ring awareness or almost like he's in the ring thinking too much. And that cost him the match. Daniel also says, Terunofuji and Takakeisho are my top two, so he'll be on that tier in my mind since both of them are in diminished states. Yeah, I get that. Terunofuji is definitely the man. He showed everybody exactly what you're supposed to do as an Ozeki, as a Yokozuna. He showed you got to be, powerful upper body, lots of techniques, great ring awareness, able to get out of tough jams. He checks off all the boxes. He just happens to have really bad knees and a lot of other health issues. Takayasu would be sort of the antithesis, but still, absolutely love Takayasu. He's just a power guy. But to be able to blast out so many guys that he has, he must be incredibly powerful. And there's something to be said for putting everything you have into your greatest asset. And like Terunofuji, the whole injury thing is coming back to haunt him. And there's a part of me that I don't ever want to stop watching him fight sumo, and I hope he gets his goal. But I also look forward to the day he retires and loses weight so that he can hopefully have a good quality of life, because I think, unfortunately, his height makes it very difficult to be a sumo wrestler and carry all that weight. I do worry very much about that. So I'm looking forward to the day that he retires, not because I want him to go, but because I think he'd make a great coach, and hopefully he could raise up the next Ozeki. And no matter what happens, you can't take away from him. He made it to Ozeki at 22 years old, and he basically kept it. He had the one little slip down to Ozeki Waki, but other than that, he's had the longest tenure in a while out of all the Ozekis. RC Tankman, Eye of the Tiger. That's right, Eye of the Tiger. Got to get some montages in here. I want to see... Oh, that would be so cool if we got Hasanoyama, Abi, and Terunofuji in an Eye of the Tiger montage doing their training, and then they all battle it out at the end. We know Terunofuji would win, but it would be so cool to watch the battle. A nice 3-man playoff. Because I do miss the physicality of Asanoyama. You know, just watching to see what he can do when he's really, really on. So that pretty much concludes this short live stream, just checking in on things. Unfortunately, schedules are not aligning properly again, and John will be solo for the recap show. I'm going to give him some notes, and so my thoughts will be a part of it, but it will be just John who will be taking over for that. Last time I wanted to do a live stream in between July and September, and it never happened. This time I'm going to try again. There are lots of good sumo channels out there that are talking about a lot of good things, and there's information you can get about guys and what states they're in. So hopefully we will have another live stream before the 42 Opinions preview show. Other than that, enjoy the show, everybody. It's going to be wild. Thank you for coming in and chatting. And you'll hear from John in a couple of days.